Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Hey, this episode, in fact, the whole year is sponsored by Calavista Software. That is software without the drama. If you're not familiar with Calavista, they are a big supporter of the Austin Technology Council and the Austin technology community, and we thank them for sponsoring this podcast so that we can bring you great interviews every single week. My name is Thom Singer, and I've been with the Austin Technology Council for now 3.5 years. And I started this podcast just 3 years ago for the purpose of being able to bring interviews with people who are doing cool things here in our community who maybe you've never connected with and you've never heard of. We try to talk to startups, growth companies, and the larger big tech that are here in Austin so that we can get that whole perspective. Because the one thing we have to be careful of is that Austin doesn't become a bunch of little tech silos that don't talk to each other and don't care about each other. We've got to have that thread that runs through the whole community, and that's what we're trying to do at ATC. So today, we are going to talk to an entrepreneur who's here in town. He didn't start his company here, but he moved it here in 2021. We're going to find out a little bit about that, why he moved here, etc. And so we welcome to the show, Prakhar Agrawal. Prakhar, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. I'm really excited to be here. And it sounds like you have been in the Austin Tech Council, and I didn't even know about it. So I'm really excited to figure out and learn more about this stuff and hopefully can contribute to the community.
Nice. Well, for those of you who don't know Prakhar yet, you're going to get to know a lot about him here in the next 20 minutes or so. He is the CEO of Senseloaf AI. I'm going to love to find out what Senseloaf is all about because I like the title, but I don't know what it means from the name of the company. He was originally born in India. He came to the States 12 years ago to go to grad school. He then moved to Boston where he started his company. And then a couple years ago, about 5 years ago, he looked at Austin and said, that tech scene's got something going on. And what his company does is they help companies manage their recruiting with AI and software. And they work with small companies all the way up to the big companies because they can scale it depending on the recruiting needs of that company. So, Prakhar, let's go back to how you got into tech. I don't know if we start in India or we start after grad school, but how did you get into the tech world?
So I was an engineer by profession. So I was a mechanical engineer and I did my grad school in mechanical engineering. So I've been always fascinated by tech and engineering. And I was working in core mechanical jobs. So trust me, Tom, I had nothing to do with AI and tech. When I say tech, nothing to do with AI and computer science and software. But one thing that kind of really annoyed me all the time was when you're looking for a job, you talk to, still today, you pick up 10 people or you ask 10 people, how's the job hunt? And they're like, man, I don't like it. Nobody gets back to you. Or you look at people who are hiring and they're like, it's so hard to find people. So that's what happened to me when I was changing jobs after grad school. And I can never forget, right? A recruiter called me and she was like, hey, are you adaptive enough for this research mechanical engineering role in this lab for mechanical stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'm adaptive enough. Yeah, I can pick up stuff. So then it clicked me that it's getting to the interview where, it's the issue of finding people, right? So what should I do? So I thought there should be an automated matching system. And that's, I'm talking about 2017-18. And I was like, I don't know how to write even a single line of code. I can do engineering. So I started reaching out to my network and talking to people. That's how we reconnected back with my co-founder. And he was an AI engineer back in India, leading a data science team back in 2017-18. And that's also related to how we come up with the name. So that's how I got into tech because I really, really wanted to solve this issue. And I was like, even if I don't know how to code, I'll find people who can know to code and learn about it and try to figure it out.
So that's one of the things I liked when I first met you, and then I was reading about the thing, is that you didn't become an AI company last year. This is something that you founded 7 years ago, and you founded it with somebody who was actually working on this back in 2016, 15, 16, because there's so many people now who, AI has become, important. And it's become a major change that's going to affect all of our society. But it's also a buzzword. There's a lot of companies who are just changing their URL to .ai. Yeah. They're not really inventing anything new. But you guys actually started when you found your co-founder. That was what he was working on. So how did you find your co-founder, and how did you guys come together to form the company?
Yeah, so we actually went to undergrad together back in India. So I knew him from my undergrad days. But I was literally calling him every single person in my network like, hey, I have this idea, but I need somebody who knows how to code and come up with this like AI model. So one of my friends was like, hey, I just talked to Gautam. He's also trying to do something in recruitment, right? Like with this. So I talked to him. So what happened was he was leading a data science vertical for another company back in 2016, 17. And he was working with recruiters. And so the issue was running into like, these recruiters, I'm having a hard time explaining to them what I need. And the profiles they're sending it back to me are not making any sense. He was working on natural language processing. So the whole idea is like, how can you understand the context of a keyword or a phrase or a context, what has evolved into LLM. So he was working on NLP, and he was working on solving this issue, like how do we like figure out document querying and matching and contexting, which is again, some of the foundations that goes into LLM also. And he realized, I can do this in recruitment. And that's where, when we got together, so he was like, he left that started right away because that's early days and not a lot of people doing that. And he's like, I have to do something, but I just need somebody who can also figure out stuff from the business side. And, you need somebody to start a company together. So that's how we reconnected. We talked for 6 months around like what we can do in this space, like what does the possible applications look like? And then we started. And that's why the name Senseloaf is, because we realized, I know you were going to ask this.
I was just going to say, let's hear the story behind it. Yeah.
So we realized that because the tech we're building, and now everybody knows, is that LLMs can, figure out all kinds of data in all kinds of industry. We realized recruitment is the first slice of the big picture we're looking at. So that's why we're making sense of data. And we thought recruitment is the first slice of the big loaf. So we came up with the name Senseloaf. The funny thing is we thought everybody will get it. Like people is going to think that's like the coolest thing ever. Not a single person in the last 7 years, Thom, I can promise you, has been like, why have you, like, what does this name mean? Like, are you guys a bakery? Like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, no, it's, but yes, we stuck with the name because it shows what we're thinking back 7 years. So as you said, like, it's not like we started about AI just like a year ago because it was trendy, because we deeply wanted to solve this issue, and we understood like how AI and tech could leverage in solving some of these business issues.
So there's a lot of competition in this space. There's a lot of people trying to make recruiting easier. And you're right, whether you're the recruiter who's looking for people or you're the person looking for a job, there's a lot of frustration, right? I talk to people who are hiring managers, and they say that a lot of the tools they're using, they're doing such a good job of weeding out to the job description that they're missing that diamond in the rough person who can be adaptive. And when I talk to people looking for jobs, they apply and never hear back and all this. So where do you guys come into this picture to make it less frustrating for one side or the other, or both?
Yeah. So we come in exactly the point you mentioned. So as soon as somebody hits submit to a job application, we are there. So our system, what it does is understands the preferences and requirements from the job manager, hiring manager, recruiter, and we create a matching strategy. So it's just not looking at some keywords. It's not looking matching Java to Java or, leader to leader, but we look at like what kind of work you have done, domains, industries. We look at subtle signals that you generally talk. Like you can be like, hey, I want somebody who's like Thom, or we want somebody who's not switch jobs every few months. So we take all of these variety of inputs, and then we create and match the candidate. So even if you have 1,000 people, they get ranked from top to bottom. But that's just the entry point. Then the second thing that happens is that the conversational agent we have built, which will go out and be like, hey, Thom, thanks for applying, right? I mean, you look great. You made all of the credit. We just want to ask you certain questions, verify, and it could happen 24/7. So it would be like, hey, Thom, you're actually in Austin, right? So you said you're part of the CEO of Tech Council. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you need visa to start this job, or how soon? So just the same questions that somebody will have to pick up the phone and do this for hundreds of people. That's happening at scale at the time. And when that happens, we have a third agent, which is an AI interview agent, which can actually go and be like, Thom, awesome. Thanks for applying. You have answered us questions. Look great. We would love to schedule a quick interview either with a hiring manager or an AI interview where we verify this information. So it's a conversational agent. It's kind of cool how we bring in. So you can almost think like we are an end-to-end recruitment system, execution system that works on the hiring team's logic. So it's governed by the logic of the recruitment team, so then they can set up this automation flow. And then after that, you decide what you want to do, right? We don't get into the decision-making process.
So how big is the company now? Where do you stand now, and where are you going forward?
We are about 15 people company, and we have done, trust me, and Thom, as you mentioned, it's a crowded space. A lot of people are doing a lot of stuff. A lot of people have been lied to a lot.
Yes.
On promises like, oh, they promise you the world and there's nothing. So we are actually, the reason I'm getting more involved back in the community is we're opening up the product to the world within a month, which means is that enough of promises, enough of like this marketing on what AI can do. Our platform, anybody can log in and can test this execution logic on different agents as they like. And then once they see the value, then we can talk about like how it can work for them. So this way, that's where we are going. We're trying to like disrupt this industry in a way where we are taking a value first approach and making the product available to everyone. Whether you're a single person company or an enterprise, you can test it on your own, and then we can talk. How can it fit within your needs?
So you've been doing this for 7 years. What has been some of the biggest challenges? I mean, in the last, halfway point of your 7 years, the world changed when it came to AI and easy access to LLMs and everything else. What have been some of the challenges with this fast-paced world that we're in?
The biggest challenge was, Thom, people still think it's a buzzword, right? Like you look at, it's easy to market AI, but it's very hard to deliver on AI. So you are in a market that is driven by mistrust, right? Like all these people we are trying to sell to, they have been lied to in the past, right? And talent acquisition and HR as a function was considered a cost function. Very recently, people have started to see the value. No shit, like we need to take care of our people, right? Because good people like helps with the branding. Good people help us take the company forward. So one challenge was there during COVID, and I'm glad you brought it up because those are the initial first 2 years of our company. And we're getting it till like people are picking up. We have our first customer in New York, first customer in Boston. We're super excited. We're talking to these people, and COVID hit, and nobody's hiring, right? Like so suddenly, the pipe that we were working on, the people, all these people who are champions in these companies, they have been laid off, right? So what do, right? Like we are sitting here trying to send people hiring and nobody is hiring, right? Like people are just like, we don't know what's going to happen. So that was a really good introspection point for us. We changed our business model completely back then to survive. Those were really tough 1 or 2 years, but we did survive because we changed our business model. We started focusing on infra. I don't want to get too much into it but we started building like AI infra and started giving that as a service. But in the last 2-3 years, we have come back to the same product that you're currently seeing today. But the challenge is, the biggest one is that people are just confused. There's too much information out there. It's a crowded market. They don't know what to believe, what to trust, and what to try on. And that's why we're like, take it. No commitments, test it. And then you have all the information at your hand to take it forward.
So a couple of years ago, back in 2001, you decided Boston wasn't the place to be. You were gonna up and move. How did that sort of come about? Did your co-founder move as well? What came about with your move?
So it's a funny story. So the one good thing that happened in COVID, everything was remote. Both me and my wife, we realized we don't have to suffer the 6 months of cold in Boston because she even didn't have to go to job. So we were like, you know what? We would rather take away 6 months of shoveling snow and move to a place that is up and coming. It's warm. And that's what we looked at. We're like, I don't want to move to Cali because never wanted to there. And then Austin is up and coming. And whatever I have, whatever I started in Boston, I learned a lot from the community. So that's what I wanted to do, is like to get more involved in the Austin tech community. And of course, the cold played a huge part in it too.
So where's your wife from and where did she go to school? How did you both end up in Boston?
So she's also from India, but she's from the west coast of India. I'm from the east coast. We met in grad school.
Okay.
So that's how we were. We met in grad school. We would have never met in India if we were in India, but we met in grad school. Luckily, we both found jobs. I first found the job in Boston, then she found a job 6 months later in Boston. And that's the reason we decided to move, because her job became permanently remote during COVID. And as a startup, you can work from anywhere. So like, there's no reason anymore to stay there anymore. So let's go and try a new place.
So you decided the cold weather wasn't for you. You looked around the country. You guys could have gone back to Florida where you went to grad school. You could have gone out to California. There's a lot of options. You picked Austin. So let's talk about that. What was it about Austin that made you guys say this would be a great place to come and build our life?
So during 2021, Austin was, from a tech perspective, when we were evaluating, especially where is the next hotspot for startups, where there's a community where people are moving, innovation, how it's looking like. So that felt the right place as a startup, where in ecosystems like Boston, New York, even though they're really mature, you can very easily, there's not enough space, like when you're starting small, when you have new ideas, there's a lot of already big players. But Austin felt like a place where people are more open-minded. They have an appetite for innovation, and they were just like trying to disrupt and figure out an identity for themselves. It just felt like the place where people will be more interested to try new things. So that was the reason. And another reason was I came to Austin about 10 years ago for a conference, for a career fair conference where I didn't get any job. And I just felt like, okay, I mean, this could also be a place where, we can come back and see how things could be.
So you've been in Austin now for, I guess, almost 5 years. So you've been here for a while. What have been some of the things that have been great for you and growing a company that have been here? And then we'll talk a little bit about, maybe where Austin could do a better job of welcoming in, aggressive young entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I think what has been really great is how, like, when it's needed, specifically people come together, especially even in the tech community. But where it lags the most is on like a general cadence. So during South by Southwest, you will see like a surge of everybody super excited about tech community, AI alliances, trying to do good for each other. But on off months, you see these events where a lot of people are interested in getting involved, but they're not able to find a way to get involved. As you said, like, the mentor hours are considered like a gated community. So the open support and knowledge is missing from our ecosystem today, which I feel like is a huge part of it. It's very rare, and that's why I kind of like what happened at Guild is it's very rare what has happened to me in the last 5 years is where I've gone to an event and made a meaningful connection like I did with you, Gino, Marat, like a few other people I met there. It has extremely rare that has happened where you can get good quality connections and information that you can actually learn from both ways, just not one way. So that's hugely missing from Austin, I feel like.
Well, I think it's there, but it's hard. There's no roadmap, right? I think that's one of the things in Austin is that there's no one group that is the answer. There's no, nothing can be, there's no king of Austin tech, right? There's not just one thing. So what I tell people all the time is you've got to be willing to throw a little bit of spaghetti against the wall and go to different events put on by different types of groups, whether it's Capital Factory, whether it's Austin Women in Technology, the Austin Technology Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and then also businesses and private groups like we met at the Guild event will host dinners at steakhouses and things like that. And I think it's not one or the other. It's trying a bunch of different things and then finding where am I making those connections and then doubling down and not only going back to them, but then also the responsibility falls to the entrepreneur like you is bringing other people on. That's what I tell people who come to the Austin Technology Council events and they go, I really like these events. And I'm like, who are you bringing next month to the breakfast, right? So I think in order to have that gap in the community, as you'd said, filled, is it really takes the real leaders to help lead. So I have a saying that real leaders show up. Because sometimes people think, oh, these 10 names are the leaders of the tech community, but you can't get to them because they're not showing up at any public events and, they're not going there. And I'm like, well, if they're not part of the community, they're not the leaders. They're important and they've made a contribution. But the real leaders are the people who show up in the room. So for people like you who show up, I always push back and say, who are you bringing next time to whatever event you're going to?
No, that's a really good point, Tom. And I'll actually be more aware of it. Luckily, I'm connected with a lot of startups in Austin community, which are not involved and part of this. So I'll make sure I'll bring more people as much as I can to these events and stuff. So definitely we'll do that. That's on me.
So you mentioned that you've got, a lot of friends in startups. What are some of the trends that you're seeing as, a startup entrepreneur? What are some of the trends that you're seeing in Austin from the standpoint of what types of companies are out there? What types of people make up the entrepreneurs that you run around with?
So recently I'm seeing a lot of engineers that are becoming entrepreneurs because in this age, it's easier to like vibe code and leverage LLMs and to build like a productivity tool. Because if you look around the whole spectrum, there's so many issues at every single step where if you can find people who are willing to pay like $30, $40, $50, and you tap into the consumer side of the business, you can make like a good $500,000, $1 million business with a team of 3, 4, 5 people. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of trend is where people are picking up issues they have felt themselves, but they also have the ability to code and build a very quickly app and try it out. So the barrier has gone down to test new ideas and products. So I just met a company that started 6 months ago, and I'm kind of interested in the product, which is kind of crazy to think about that they have been able to build something that I can use within my team today, just after 6 months of launching, which is mind-blowing. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but mainly targeting productivity, personal issues, like on smaller issues. I've yet to see companies or startups that can handle issues at a much larger scale, at an enterprise level or from a business perspective, but definitely more on smaller companies and B2C side.
So you brought something up about, engineers becoming the entrepreneurs. And I mean, there's always been examples of that, especially in tech, because you had to have sort of the engineering, to be able to do that. But I think you're right. I think now engineers see themselves as entrepreneurs, where I think going back to, I'm a lot older than you are, going back 40 years, my friends who were engineers went to work for companies like Lockheed or, early stage, computer companies, mainframe companies. They didn't see themselves as ever starting a business. And now I think a lot of people who come out of an engineering master's degree or whatever, I think they see themselves coming out of grad school as they might take a job, but what are they going to do as their side project? So what do you think that shift is in the engineer's mind that's got people like you thinking, how do I start a company?
So the shift is like the risk is lower now, right? The barrier to entry is extremely low. You don't have to take a huge risk of like, shit, I need to quit my job. I need to start this from my garage, right? Or it's not going to make it. So the risk is there. So most of these people who are starting, they don't need to quit what they're doing. They can just start something on the side, test it out, see if it works. So when the risk is low, it's easier. And it's true for just not people from engineering. It's true from people who are not even from engineering background, but they get an idea and they can very easily, find somebody who also doesn't need to quit a job and just try something out. Right. So Thom, I'll ask you this, what was your background? What made you jump into this CEO role, founder role?
So my background is I was in sales and marketing, and I worked for companies that sold to the tech community here in Austin. So I moved here 34 years ago before tech really started to boom in Austin. So I sort of had a sideline seat. I wasn't in the middle of it, but I sold into that community. So I worked for a couple different types of companies, but most notable law firms, banks, and consulting firms. And I started speaking. Also, I had my own business as a professional speaker, and I did that on the side until I did it full time. And the pandemic sort of hurt that. If you were making money talking at corporate meetings, there were no corporate meetings. And this opportunity came up 3.5 years ago. I was hired to kind of reinvent the Austin Technology Council. The world has changed. Austin's changed. ATC was founded 33 years ago. We're not the same city. So the goals of the organization have to be morphed and looked in a different way. And the timing was right. So, but I still have my speaking business on the side. And when you were talking about the fact that these engineers can have a job with a big company and have their side project, I think that's becoming, really common. I mean, maybe not amongst my age group as much, but I think with your age group, I think it's really common that, people are, they might have a job and they're trying something on the side. And you're right, the risk isn't as large. I mean, it's, I've rebuilt my speaking business now that the world of conferences has come back, but I'm able to do both because about 50% of my job I can do remotely. So if I'm in Washington, D.C. giving a speech, I'm still working for ATC all day. So while I don't have an engineering background, I'm more of a marketing and sales guy. All businesses, that the marketing and sales guys are partnering up with their engineer friends and starting these businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is also partly related to, I think, because in the last 4 years, what we have seen is all of these engineers and people who thought, they're set for life working at these large corporations, they've just realized, I could be laid off at a moment's notice.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that the last couple of years.
Yeah. So the loyalty value has gone down, both sides. So they're like, we could be literally, Amazon just laid off 13,000, 2,000 people. So people are also scared. So they're like, the goal is if you can set up something recurring, doing a side business, why not?
So as you look to the future, as we wrap this up, as you look at Senseloaf over the next 3 or 4 years, what are you hoping to accomplish? Where do you hope that when we talk on the podcast 3 years from now, what are we talking about when we're talking about Senseloaf AI?
We're talking about how we have changed how people think about recruitment. And we kind of want to introduce something called happiness index. So I'm going to measure like how people hire and get hired based on the happiness index. And we're going to talking about how are we expanding to new countries. And we have 10 different headquarters across US. So that's hopefully what we'll be talking about. And hopefully how we have taken Austin Tech Council and make it a global phenomenon.
There you go. So any final words to other entrepreneurs?
Now just keep hustling because we are definitely, one thing I would say is that because of low risk and all of this, we expect to see very quick results. I think that one thing has not changed. Like without like falling on your face at least 10 times. Some people do that without falling on their face, but that has not changed. I think we expect to see very quick results because that's what our brain has been trained to now through ChatGPT and all these different LLMs. But the reality of a business does not change the fundamentals, I think.
Well, I think you're right. And I think that we live in a world where we see those few people, those outliers who start a business and sell it for $100 million 8 months later. And we think, oh, that's what I'm going to do. But if you look at really who are the successful people, it's their, third or fourth or fifth company or their first company in its third or fourth iteration 7 to 10 years later. So I think that's actually really good advice to the younger entrepreneurs. Remember, it's a grind some days, but you keep grinding.
Yeah, you keep grinding. That's what I would say. But yeah, Thom, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you. And Prakhar, if people want to find you and find out more about the company, how do they find you?
So our website, www.senseloaf.ai, you can find there. I'm on LinkedIn, so pretty active on LinkedIn. My email, if you want, I can share my email with you guys. But I live in Austin. I work out of Capital Factory, so if you want to meet up, I'm always available to meet people and stuff. Plus, I'm also planning to host a bunch of events down the line, so you can come and meet me there too.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that our paths crossed last week and that you were able to jump on the show. I always admire the entrepreneurs when I say you want to be on the podcast who email me the next day and say, yes, let's do it this week. That's always a good sign of an aggressive, scrappy entrepreneur. So thanks for reaching out after I invited you on the show and getting this scheduled inside of a week. That's good.
Yeah. Thanks, Thom. After COVID, you learn to be scrappy, I guess. But
awesome.
Okay.
Well, I look forward to seeing you again soon at some Austin Technology Council events. And to everybody who tuned in and listened, share the podcast with your friends. Our numbers are growing, and it's because listeners tell their coworkers, hey, check out this podcast, because it's not always the same old people you're hearing on every Austin podcast. We try to get a whole cross-section of people who are making stuff happen here in Central Texas. All right, we'll see you back next week on Austin Tech Connect.